Hey everyone! Last time we went over animating object visibility or whatever. This time we're gonna do like the same thing kinda with far fewer geometry nodes and using collections. So here's my list of objects. Before we head into the geometry node editor, we're gonna need to organize these objects into collections corresponding to how we want to animate the object visibilities. To add a new collection, you can right-click anywhere in the outliner and choose New Collection. I'm gonna start with Link's boot options, which are just default boots and flippers. So we can drag these objects into the new collection. Since the boots and flippers are part of the armature hierarchy, there's little ghost objects here. It's fine. Objects can also be in multiple collections at the same time. To do that, select on your object and go into the Object Properties tab. Under the collection dropdown, we can set what collections our object is a part of, as well as put an object into multiple collections. Right now it's saying the flippers are part of the main collection, which isn't correct, but I think it's just not updated. Selecting off and back onto it seemed to have fixed it. So we can click Add to Collection to add the object to an already existing collection, or we can click this plus sign to add a new collection. So I'm going to add the boots to the main collection as well, and then do the same with the flippers. You can also hold Control while dragging objects in the outliner to put them into multiple collections. Make sure to disable the visibility of all of your switchable objects in the outliner. Now let's set up our geometry node object. Make sure your cursor is at World Origin, which you can do by hitting Shift S and choosing World Origin. Now let's hit Shift A and add a plane. You can actually use a cube or a single vertex, anything really. Tab into Edit mode and select all. Hit M and merge at center, so we just have a single vertex at the world origin, which is where I have the origin for all of my objects in my scene. We're going to instance our objects on this vertex, so you want it to be where the object's origins are. Otherwise, they're just going to start showing up in random places in your scene. Now switch over to the geometry node editor, and with the single vertex object selected, hit New here. Now we just need to add a couple of nodes to get everything to work. Add an instance on points node, and a collection info node. Choose the collection here, and connect the nodes up like this. Ignore this error icon for a second, I'm gonna fix it. Check Separate Children and pick Instance. And now we'll use this socket to choose which object to instance. So add a value node. And it isn't working, because I've got an error. I accidentally put my geometry node object inside the collection I'm trying to instance. So just move it out, and now everything is working as intended. Maybe don't put it in there in the first place. Or do. You do you. At 0 it chooses the first object in the collection, at 1 it chooses the second, and then it'll loop through those modulo style. Modulo. Using a value node can be a little annoying, so delete it and connect this empty socket up instead. And now in the modifier tab you can use this value to change the object that's visible. You can change the settings for this value in the group tab over here. To open this menu, hit N while hovering over this window. Click the Instance Index Input, which is surprisingly hard to say. Down here we can set the min and max values. And that's basically it for the boot options. Now let's set up the main hand options. Add a join geometry node and duplicate the instance on points node. Connect up the original geometry to the new node and duplicate a collection node. You could also shift drag your collection into this window, but I don't have the collection set up yet. So let's do that real quick. And put the object options in this new collection, which for me is going to be a couple swords as well as a wand, hookshot, and shovel. Make sure to select them in object mode if you want to add them to a collection in the Object Properties tab. And just add all of your objects to the new collection. Reselect the geometry node object, switch to the collection on this node, and connect it up. Use this new empty socket here to connect to the instance index, and probably rename these so we know which is which. Set the new min and max value, which is usually min set to 0, or Z depending on your country, and max set to 1 less than your total amount of options, since we count 0 as our first option. So I have 5 objects and I want one empty eventually, so 6 total, which means max of 5. And make sure the instance on points nodes are connected to the join geometry nodes. Now I want to do this all again for the shield hand. So duplicate the instance on points node and connect it up. Duplicate the collection info node and set up the new collection. Reselect the geometry node object, And now for a little bit of flavor, I'm going to delete this node to show the quick way to add it. Hold shift and drag the new collection into the outliner, boom. Then connect it to the instance node. Enable separate children and make sure pick instance is turned on here. Connect the new socket to the instance index. Name it and set the min and max values. And now we can easily switch all of his object options. So much alliteration. The downside to this method is the order is based off the object names, so you can rename the objects, but that's sometimes not the most ideal. If you want to have an option where no objects show up, you can use more nodes to set it up so that there's a way to turn them off. Or just add an empty object to your collection, either as an actual empty, or just use an object with no geometry. Either way works, it doesn't really matter. And then just rename your objects to get the order that you want. Feel free to use drivers on these values like we did in the previous video. This one. So you can control the visibility of these objects with the rig or a scene control object or whatever makes it easiest for you, your character or your scene, whatever you're doing. I hope this helps you out with your project or gives you some ideas on new ways to use Blender. Blender's great. There's so many ways to do everything. I love it. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Share a video, check out our Patreon. This was going to be the last of these tutorials, but then there was a comment that asked if you could use text to select your options instead of numbers. So I figured it out, and I did it. And I made another tutorial, or am making. So that's next. Okay, bye, I love you, stay safe, bye bye.